All right, Matty, welcome back to the Ask Matty Show. Matty, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing great. Had a nice little 3-day weekend there and ready to talk about some crypto this week.
We had a great weekend, Matty, but last week's show, I want to wrap with the team here a little second. Last week's show was a banger. You guys loved it. We did a crypto tier list. Matty took his cryptos and put it on a chart and gave some feedback, and you guys want to see some of your cryptos. So if you want that, leave it in the comment section down below. And in that comment section, if you would like to, which you should, there's a pinned comment. Click on that pinned comment. The top one's going to take you to our website. We do crypto education on the daily. Matty talks for hours over there, so you definitely want to check that one out. Shop.crypto charge is going to be below that link. And finally, team, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. It greatly helps us. We're growing rapidly, and we want you to be here for that. And so now we're going to get into the show. Your questions, your hot takes. We're about to get into it. Matty, are you ready?
Let's answer some questions, bro.
User 5821 says, interesting, but does have Casper, wow, have any major confirmed enterprise building on them? So obviously he was responding to something you said about Casper. Any enterprise, Matty?
Yeah, so I've brought this one up a few times, and I bring it up because it's not only the largest, computation of this caliber we've seen, but it's the largest ever been done on a blockchain. So a company called IPWE, you guys can look them up. I'm actually presenting a little piece on IPWE today. They recently selected Purple Mattresses, who does have a lot of their own patented technologies when it comes to mattresses and things like that. And Casper helps with things with supply chain issues as well. So you can have a combination of IP and supply chain. But IPWE has been working nonstop with the Casper Labs to get over 25 million patents put on the Casper network blockchain. And it's going to be the largest deployment of intellectual property ever. This company that they've selected, IPWE, to work with them, and vice versa. It's a partnership, right? They make the decision to work with one another. They've been working through all of the updates. They want to make sure as they deploy these that it's going to be smooth and investors are not going to be shaken at all. So the patent minting is coming. It's going to be the very largest that we've ever had, and I'm very excited for it. So yes, building is happening right now on the Casper network.
Matty, are you concerned because there was some people on X that are in the Casper community that were kind of confused with this whole intellectual property on IPWE, I believe, or on the Casper network, with that partnership with IPWE being pushed back? Is that something to be concerned about?
No, like I said, when you have such a large deployment you're going to be attempting to do, and you already have trust that you've built with your clients within your own, software, within your own sphere, within, the way that you logistically tokenize intellectual property, right? You have to be very careful with those relationships as you move on to these blockchains. The Casper team in their Discord community recently said, hey, we're sorry that we gave dates that maybe weren't as solid as we expected, but nothing's changed from a development standpoint and from a plan to deploy standpoint when it comes to IPWE minting on the Casper network. That has not changed at all. They're not looking into any other L1s. It is going to be happening on the Casper network, and that's also been confirmed by individuals from IPWE. So this mint is happening. Whether it happens today or tomorrow, I can't tell you. And this is the number one thing everyone tries to do, right? Like, I got to buy it right before the mint so I can catch my little 30% pump or whatever, in a lot of these partnerships to really come to fruition is going to take time. If you guys want to look at the actual enterprise adoption of blockchain, it's going to be more than a decade, right? And we're just here at the very beginning stages of that. So understand that, yeah, of course, you wanted it last week. Maybe it comes next month. It is what it is. Tech needs to be deployed in a very responsible manner so that you don't degrade the integrity of the product, right?
User, a lot of letters and numbers. What are your thoughts on EWT right now? Price is dropping hard.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. We've seen a general depreciation in alts a little bit more aggressively over the last couple of weeks because we've seen a rise in Bitcoin dominance. This is a very healthy behavior we've seen over the last 10 plus years as the crypto market has grown. Energy Web Token is a smaller cap, right? It's made up of a little over $50 million in its market cap, right? Under 100 million in total, supply. And about half of that is circulating supply that's out there right now. It only represents about 1% of my portfolio right now. And it's one of those verticals that's very unique. There's not a lot of competition within the energy sector for tokenization right now. Because if you think about where we are, even within like the solar process, right? We're still kind of like on this nonstop negotiation with energy providers on, what kind of pricing you can get, how you're going to sell it back to them, at what times of the day they're going to buy it back, right? They have all these now new contingencies as they upgrade their, the processes for putting energy back onto the grid, and of course getting paid for that energy put back on the grid. So the entire idea behind Energy Web Token is that you're able to tokenize your energy at whatever price that, you're creating that, and you can either sell it back to an electric company, or you could sell it back to another person that maybe wants to use those credits in excess. Maybe they're running miners, maybe they have a grow house or something of that nature, right? There's a million reasons why somebody would want extra power. So yes, it's still somewhat a speculative idea. They do have lots of partnerships right now with people like Shell, other smaller partners, and other blockchains as well. So, for me, I'm definitely going to just let it ride, right? I'm not going to add anything to it unless we get down to that dollar region. But I think it's kind of one of those asymmetrical situations where we either do really, really well on EWT, or maybe ends up not being as successful as we thought. But it's such an interesting and niche vertical right now, and it is the largest out of that vertical that's actually doing something right now. So I'm going to continue with that position. But again, I try to kind of take my plays, and I take the fundamental passion of it along with the technical upside, and that's how I kind of decided to divvy things up, right? With Casper almost trading kind of like a mid cap right about now, and that's not going to be the case in the future. I think it'll trade more like a large cap by the end of next cycle. So I try to take a good look at the fundamentals and the technicals and make that decision. So for me, Energy Web Token, if we get down there to like 50 cents to $1, that's when I'll really kind of cut down my position again, and or cut down my average and add to my position. But until then, I'm just going to hold on to it because it's just kind of a micro holding for me.
Bobby Banks 7493 says, why did you buy Casper at all if you believe it is going to 2 cents? Did you sell all you had and are going to rebuy lower?
Man, I feel like you guys don't understand that crypto is not an all in or all out game. It's not. Too many people want to sit on the sidelines and go, I'm just going to wait till price goes low. And then prices get really close to kind of where they're interested in, or they said they were interested a year ago or a year and a half ago or 2 years ago now. And it's like, yeah, of course I target, lower prices, but I still want to hedge against myself in case those prices aren't presented, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're looking at yourself, you're saying 3 cents versus 2 versus 1.8, right? Like, yeah, of course you're going to get a lot more Casper and the reward gets bigger. But when you're looking at like a 70 to 150x potentially on the table, and you're only going to buy if this exact particular price is presented to you, you could be missing out on a lot of huge gains, right? Now, I'm not saying that, there's other assets that I have those rules with because they're way too far away from my buy zones. Like, for example, like Render is right now, like Matty is right now, like Solana is right now, right? They're way too far away from my anticipated buy zones. But Casper's already within like a very close tolerance. For me, my overall DCA rule is under 5 cents. So even after I get that big buy down there at 2.2, 2.3, whatever, I'm still going to continue to DCA as long as price is below 5 cents. Yes, it'll raise my average a little bit, but again, the overall goal here is to accumulate as much as possible. And we're not always going to get it perfect with the DCA. We're not always going to get perfect with the limit orders. And that's why we kind of lean on each other a bit, and we allow it to do a little bit of a hybrid so that we're getting a good blended average there. So, you do what you want to do. Wouldn't you hate it if you got 2.3 cents instead of 2 cents, and then you didn't get a lick of Casper, and then it, rips up to 6 cents, and you could have had a really nice opportunity to scalp some of that? That's the feeling I don't want to have. So under 5 for me is the safe zone, and I'll continue to DCA under there.
Said that so well, Matty. Dan Pont 69, what do you think about WTK? What would be a good entry? This reminds me of last year, Matty, where everyone was typing weird tickers, and what would be a good entry on this altcoin?
So WADSPay, I think, was last cycle, and I actually have the chart up right now, and I actually think it's going to dump quite a bit more. I have this feeling kind of across the board, because again, I just don't think Bitcoin's ready to rip yet to a new high. And I think that even us retesting like the low 20s, and if Bitcoin dominance continues to rise, you could see altcoins get hurt a lot worse. So when you have something like, and this is again why I'm calling for potentially lower prices on Casper, hell, you crack a new low and you give me like 1.6, 1.8 cents, like I'm going to town down at those prices. So it's not something I'm afraid of. I'm just hoping for the opportunity. But you guys can see here that we had, a very clear breakdown of support. You guys can see right here, boom, where that got flipped. So this is a classic support and resistance flip. So you had support back here, you had this turn into resistance, and then resistance again. So this is now a very big ceiling of resistance, 3.5 cents. That's a very important zone for us. We also have kind of like this smaller trend that's in here that hasn't been broken yet. But ultimately, again, if we're just gonna be very, very basic about this, looking left to right, which way is the trend going? It's going down, right? If I were to flip it upside down, we would say, wow, that looks like a really nice breakout. It's back testing the support level. We should expect to break higher, right? So we need to follow that exact same logic, but with the chart obviously facing the correct way, and assume that, hey, we could probably revisit the lows here, right? That could mean another sub 1 penny drop here for WADSPay. So again, make sure you're doing your own, fundamental research on this, but I really wouldn't be a buyer until we got back down to the lows, like say between like 0.005 and 0.007. Again, someone in the comments is gonna be like, well, if you think it's going that low, why buy any now? Again, I don't know anything about this project. This is something that you have to understand, deeply in order to continue, especially when we have a structure like this. It's a very similar structure to what Casper has right now, right? We had like this correction into the previous resistance level, and then we actually broke this channel, which is why I'm looking for further depreciation. So, I would probably hold off on any aggressive buys until we break below 1 penny again, and then you can kind of start to like crank up that DCA or place some limit orders down there, whatever you think is best. But again, not a project I'm privy to fundamentally, but that's kind of the technical case in my opinion.
Yeah, Matty, this chart is way more scarier than Casper's, because with Casper, like, we've obviously found a bottom, and if you were like terrified of Casper, like it would make sense for you logically to be like, okay, at least we found a bottom here. Casper is not going to go any lower besides like maybe 2 cents, but with WASPay, like, it really is just this looks scary. This looks a little bit scary.
Yeah, it hasn't really started its breakdown yet. So again, of course, you get a nice BTC retrace higher. You could be looking at a retest of 3.5 cents, and that's not a bad spot to consider maybe taking some chips off the table depending on where you positioned yourself initially. But I do think that the majority of the crypto market could absolutely see a significantly lower that will upset a lot of people. But if you're prepared and you're taking somewhat of a consistent investor strategy approach, and you're lopping off a portion of your monthly or biweekly or weekly contributions and into dry powder, it's something that you're almost cheering for, right? It is another revisitation of lows. A lot of assets, especially some of the more established assets, setting higher lows, and those could afford, of course, signal bottoms for other coins that maybe are setting fresh lows. So in the moment, it's a very scary experience, but that's why I try not to be spread too thin. I try to focus on maybe 3 or 4 different opportunities I want to capitalize on, and then maybe 2 or 3 trade ideas outside of those long-term investments, and really just wait for those to come to fruition or engage in nothing at all, because there's too many assets that everyone will say, if you don't buy this now, you're missing out, or you're going to miss out on an opportunity for a 20 or 50 or 100x. I don't ever believe in that. You need to set ranges that you're comfortable with and then stick to those ranges. Those are your rules. That is your Bible, and you should not deviate from those.
I'm a great believer of Casper, but the on-chain metrics do not look great. Number of transactions. Do you think this will change with Binance and Coinbase listings?
I mean, it's all relative, number of transactions, right? Like if you look at what Cardano was doing, number of transactions in 2021 versus number of transactions Cardano is doing now, right? We're down like over 90% on transactional, demand on that network, which is one of the main reasons why I talk about long-term longevity of a blockchain or a DLT solution is, are we going to have continued demand on the network? Casper is so young. It's a little baby. It's a baby ghost. Remember, Casper is literally a baby ghost. That's the fictional character he plays. So you guys have to remember, when we have anticipation for some of this building, some of this growth, it can get frustrating because you're seeing all these things that we're researching, you see all the partnerships that are forming, but sometimes it takes some time for us to actually see that demand. I can guarantee you during the bull market, and especially like you said here, if we get some nice bigger exchange listings like a Coinbase listing, which again I think they're going to probably start listing a whole bunch of new assets once they get through this SEC lawsuit. You guys have to remember they're in active litigation with the SEC right now, so they don't want to be pushing things harder than they have to, further than they have to, right? I haven't seen a lot of new listings on Coinbase, and I think they're being very, very particular, even if they think that they're right? Like they relisted XRP within an hour and a half, or made the announcement of the SEC ruling. So I think that they're just being very cautious right now. They are a publicly traded company. They have shareholders that they have to be responsible for, right? So they don't want to keep tanking the price of Coinbase stock, even if they're doing the right thing in the short term, right? Because people are fearful that they're going to get further lashes from the SEC, right? So again, I think bull market, we're going to see a lot more demand on the network. Of course, that always cools off in the bear market, but what really will set through these blockchains or DLT solutions apart in the future is what continues to be built on in the future, right? I think Ethereum is being built on right now because it's the only place that you can very easily spin up like your own ERC20 token without a whole lot of work or development, right? But you start to give those plug and play solutions on other networks, maybe that ETH volume isn't what you would expect it to be, right? Especially if there's other L1s that are cheaper, more predictable gas fees, offer the same ability to make smart contracts, NFTs, all these different things, right? So I just want you guys to realize we've only had 2 really big cycles within crypto, right? So we haven't really had very much time to say, how are these going to be continue to be valued in the future? Because if you think about the first cycle, it was basically just Bitcoin, ETH, And then that was really it, right? You kind of like the Bitcoin, ETH, Litecoin, Zcash, Bitcoin Cash, right? You kind of had like this little flurry, and then you had some other altcoins that kind of started to launch towards the end of that cycle, and then it all died back off, right? So like just because you kind of have a small cap or a micro cap doesn't mean they all are going to be winners, but when you really understand the fundamentals of something you're inside of, and it's still small enough to where like you're able to get yourself a really good share of circulating supply, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I want to double down and even triple down on those opportunities. So yeah, Casper will absolutely have further demand on their network. And especially when we have smart contracts that have multiple parts to them, those transactions become more expensive. I think that it's going to be a very, very surprising number of transactions by the end of this next bull cycle.
I like that, Matty. A lot of good things there. I have so many questions in my head right now that are popping to my head. I had a very interesting last weekend where I got to talk a lot about crypto with just people in random spaces, you know. I feel kind of obligated personally. I know me and you have had this conversation because for you, it's annoying because you wear a Ripple hat or you wear an XRP shirt and people are just throwing comments at you. But for me, I feel obligated to tell people like what I've seen in crypto, and especially I've heard it a lot, you know, especially my generation, Gen Z, where the financial people, their like exposure was like AMC, GameStop, you know, Doge, right. And they're still holding that Doge bag, as I was telling you earlier this morning. And it's really sad. Matty, how are you navigating making conversation with people about crypto, if at all, for that matter? Because like me and you were at lunch one time, maybe last year, and someone said some stupid Ripple comment, and I was just like, dude, like you were way off the mark with that, man. Like, why would you ask Matty that?
Yeah.
Like, so how are you navigating your conversation with crypto in real life outside of the Ask Matty show?
Yeah. So like you said, you know, more often than not, you get in an Uber or you get somewhere and you meet people and they're like, oh, what do you do? And you tell them, hey, I work in crypto, da da da. And immediately they're going to either tell you about how they bought Doge and made no money, or bought Doge and watched it go all the way up and then sold nothing. Or they're going to tell you about their sister told them about AMC or GameStop and they, you know, short squeezed the hell out of these guys, which didn't happen, by the way. They flipped their positions on you and they made money on both sides of the transaction. They have more FU helicopter money than you can even fathom. I digress. Having conversations with the everyday person is probably what it was like having conversations with people with stock picks during the dot-com bubble, right? Like people just kind of giving out, you know, tickers, saying this is the next soundbite, but really having no knowledge of what they're doing other than, hey, I called this guy and he helped me buy this stock and I made a little bit of money on it, right? But in a bull market, a lot of times you can throw a dart, you can make a little bit of percentage, right? Especially in crypto, it's a very fast-moving market 24/7. But the conversations I'm having now continue to remind me that we are so early to this space still, because people are still very uneducated about blockchain. They're very uneducated about tokenization of illiquid and illiquid assets, smart contracts, and they don't understand how this tidal wave of technology is going to change their lives in a much more impactful way than just Bitcoin equals digital gold. To me, that is the most tired piece of information I've been hearing for the last, 7+ years now. I'm very excited to see, 5-10 years down the road when people are maybe a little bit more privy, a little bit more educated, we're seeing a little bit more real life utility, what those conversations look like in the future. But every conversation I have with the everyday person, even people who are business professionals, is still very, elementary. So I think that we're still very early, and that's a very exciting thing for us as investors.
Matty, I hate it because I used a Big Short reference like 2 shows ago, but I have to use it again, where like Steve Carell's group is like walking around and, they're trying to figure out, do these people really understand what's going on with the housing market right now? Do they really understand? And that's how I feel when I get out and people like, oh, like I just tell them like, yeah, I invest in crypto. And they tell me how they invest in crypto. I'm like, holy shit, these guys don't get it yet. These guys have no clue about the things that we're talking about on a daily basis. The asset class that's going to change our lives. I don't want to get like super like one of those guys, those influencers, but it is very exciting. You should be excited about that for how little, and it saddens me. That's why I talk about it so much in my everyday life. But it's saddening, but it's like, oh my gosh, like these guys have not done their due diligence, So anyways, anything to leave the team with here, Matty, before we close out the show?
Yeah, so we're actually updating the pricing on our site. We're doing a little bit of back-end maintenance right now, but we're actually going to be offering some special pricing for crypto charge. So it was originally $100 a month. We're doing $50 a month right now, or you guys can save even a little bit more money and go with $4.99 for the entire year, and you get to keep those prices. So if you lock those prices in between now and then this next year, you will be able to keep either that monthly or that yearly rate. And of course, if you have a monthly rate, we will let you upgrade to that yearly rate, even if our yearly rates go up. So you have the opportunity to upgrade to that $4.99 for the year. So if you guys want to get that early access to that before the website is updated with the new pricing, use code YouTube at checkout, and that'll get you 50% off any memberships. You can go monthly, quarterly, or yearly, whatever fits you in your budget.
Love that. If you have an annoying brother-in-law at your upcoming holiday, just get him a crypto charge membership. And then he can, instead of him asking you about crypto, just send him to Matty. He'll even everything out. That's what I'm going to do. But anyways, team, that's all we have. Again, we had a good banger of a show last weekend or last week. Leave your ticker in the comment section down below, and maybe I'll pull it up on the tier list if it's a good crypto, not a rug pull. But until next time, team, we'll see you next time. See ya.
Oh my God. Is Gavin about to like solo record an outro again?
No.
Until the next time, I'm
leaving it in.